Hey, what's up, everybody? True Boxing here. Thank you for coming back to get hit with the truth. So today we are doing the what's next on Janibek Alimkhanuly, or Kazakh style, the reigning undefeated WBO and IBF Unified Middleweight Champion of the world, as he's coming off of a dominating, I think it was a ninth round TKO victory over Andrei Mikhailovich, which was his IBF mandatory challenger on I think they fought on October 4th on ESPN. It was from Australia. Now, before we get into that, if you could smash the like button, leave a comment, or subscribe to the channel, I really do appreciate any and all support that I can get as I continue to build my channel here. So for Janibek, impressive performance. He had this fight had been rescheduled because he was dehydrated and had to be hospitalized back in July when they were originally supposed to fight. And so the fight got rescheduled, and actually had to go to a purse bid again, where I think Mikhailovich's people won the purse bid, and the fight was taking place in Australia instead. And just maybe another wall for Janibek. And Janibek just controlled the tempo. He controlled the action. He looked sharp. He looked good. He was landing big shots, thudding shots, was hurting Mikhailovich over and over, and got an impressive stoppage win to retain his title, honored his mandatory. And now the big question is, what's next for Janibek? Well, we know the WBO, the other title that Janibek holds, that they have already ordered Janibek to make a mandatory defense against undefeated Hamza Shiraz. And, I know there was a little bit of talk after the fight about Janibek potentially moving up to super middleweight because of the dehydration, trying to cut weight down to 160. But, there's still work to be done. And Hamza Shiraz is a beast, and he is a very good opponent for Janibek to fight. And from what I just read recently is that Janibek's waiting to hear back from Shiraz if he wants to fight, So the WBO's ordered the fight. There really isn't anything standing in the way of this fight outside of Shiraz not wanting it or Janibek not wanting it. And it looks like Janibek wants to fight. So we're still going to run through the top 10, though, because this fight has not been made official and we do not know, and see what possibly could be other options for Janibek if the Shiraz fight doesn't happen. We start with WBC champion Carlos Adames. Adames, this fight was being lobbied and talked about before. I guess it's still potentially a fight. It's a unification bout, and Janibek wants to unify belts, but it's also the PBC working with Top Rank. Both guys are decent names in the boxing world, but like low level to decent, in terms of star power. I honestly think the PBC would prefer to put Adames in there with Erislandy Lara because they're both champions. They're both the other title holders, but I'm not completely ruling it out. I do think it's possible that Adames and Janibek could be an option. Speaking of Erislandy Lara, he's next. He's the WBA champion. Another one, he's 40, or 41. And I really think him coming off the win over Danny Garcia, I think the PBC will try to load up maybe their next card and have Adames fight Lara to unify belts. That's a big deal right there. So I think that's more likely, or if Lara has a mandatory instead. But I don't know. For some reason, this fight hasn't really been mentioned a ton. And I think it's not really going to get mentioned until Lara unify belts, because then it would be for undisputed and it would make more sense. So I don't see Janibek and Lara. Hamza Shiraz, I think, is the most likely option. He's next. He's the hottest fighter in the middleweight division right now. He's undefeated. He's been put out there by Turki Al-Sheikh, his last two fights, fighting on big cards, and he's got big victories. And also had a big victory prior to that, knocking out Liam Williams, the former world title challenger. He's had a fucking fantastic year, and this is a big fight. So I really think that's the front runner. Chris Eubank Jr., Eubank could have the fight if he wanted it, but now that there's a mandatory, I still don't think Eubank wants to fight Janibek. I think he just wants big-name fights or low-level fights like the Kamil Jeremita fight that he just had, low-level type of fights that he's for sure to win. or big names. And Janibek is not a big name, but he has the 2 belts. But this fight could have been made a long time ago, and it just never got made. And I think that's because Eubank doesn't really want to fight, so I don't see this one. Then there's former champ Liam Smith. I mean, former junior middleweight champ Liam Smith. I think, I think the Liam Smith fight is a good one. I do. But is it a fight Janibek wants right now? Liam Smith, remember, hasn't fought since he lost to Chris Eubank last year in their rematch. He had to bail out of his fight with Josh Kelly due to an injury. He's a good name to get on the resume if Janibek has no other options, but Liam Smith isn't even ranked in the WBO or the IBF at middleweight right now. So I'm going to say no. I'm going to say I don't see this one. Then you got Kyrone Davis. Kyrone Davis coming off of an upset win over, Elijah Garcia. It was a big upset. It definitely moved him more in positioning. He's the IBF's number 7 contender right now. So if for some reason, the fight with Shiraz didn't happen and he was given optional mode, maybe, but he's also a PBC guy, not a big name. I just think there's other options, better options for Janibek. Then you got Shea Mosley Jr. Right now, Mosley is 6th in the IBF and he's 3rd in the WBO. This one could happen because if Shiraz bails out of a fight with Janibek, Denzel Bentley's the number 2 contender, and Janibek already beat Denzel Bentley. So would the WBO allow Janibek to fight Shea Mosley Jr. because he's got a name? They might. Shea Mosley also is number 1 to Erislandy Lara, though. But Lara might be allotted the chance to fight Carlos Adames. And I think Shea Mosley at this point, because he's been pretty hot, and won some good fights, he might fight a guy like Janibek for the title if it gets him a title shot. So I do think it's an option. I don't think it's going to happen, but I do think it's an option. Then you got Austin Williams. He fought his ass off against Hamza Shiraz, came up short. I don't think he'd come back right now and go after a world title, and I don't think Janibek would give him because he's also a risky fighter. So I think Janibek wouldn't take that one. Then other names, you got Terrell Gausha. I don't see it. Why? Why would Janibek fight Gausha right now? Gausha kind of makes people look bad. And he's coming off a loss anyways to Adames in a close fight. Jamal Charlo won't fight him. Elijah Garcia's fallen off. He already beat Vicente Gualtieri. Other options, obviously a rematch with Denzel Bentley. That could happen because Bentley's number 2 in the WBO. So if Shiraz passes on the fight and the WBO decides to upgrade Bentley to get a mandatory shot, he might have to fight Denzel Bentley next just to hold on to both belts. Etinosa Oliha is number 2 in the IBF. I don't know who the hell that is. Haven't heard of him before. I guess that's an option, but he's already cleared up his mandatory in the IBF, so I don't think that's really an option. And outside of that, I don't see a lot of big names that would really be attractive fights. So the biggest one is the Shiraz fight. I think that's the fight that's going to happen. I think it's a big fight. They can get it on a big card, and I think that's the fight that should happen. After that, it's really a crapshoot. It could be anybody. I think the Shea Mosley fight makes sense. I think a Denzel Bentley fight rematch could happen. I think Liam Smith, possibly an outside option, and then possibly a unification with Carlos Adames. We just got to wait and see. But I really do believe it's going to be Shiraz. So we'll see what happens. But that's it. That's what I got. That's my what's next on the reigning and undefeated Unified Middleweight Champion of the World, Janibek Alimkhanuly, following his 9th round TKO victory over his IBF mandatory challenger, Andrei Mikhailovich. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, smash the like button, leave a comment, or subscribe to the channel. I really do appreciate any and all support. This is True Boxing, and you've been hit with the truth.